This is a Film Stories original podcast.
At Sierra, discover great deals on top brand workout gear, like high-quality walking shoes, which might lead to another discovery.
40,000 steps, baby. Who's on top now, Karen?
You've taken the office step challenge a step too far. Don't worry, though. Sierra also has yoga gear. It might be a good place to find your zen. Discover top brands at unexpectedly low prices. Sierra, let's get moving.
Hello and welcome back to We Are Starfleet, a podcast about Star Trek Strange New Worlds. We are discussing Season 3, Episode 3, Shuttle to Kenfori, a distant planet in a demilitarized zone, no-fly zone. My guest today is Ian Buckley, and my name is Mike Slamer, and we are here to unpack this episode. Ian, welcome back to the show. We are in Season 3 of Strange New Worlds, so the first question I got to ask is, how you liking it so far?
I've been, as I think you are, a fan of the show for 2 seasons now. So far, Season 3 is fine. I'd say kind of aggressively fine, if I had to have a criticism so far. I think last season we had Ad Aspera Per Aspera was, I think, episode 2, and it's tough for an episode like that, which did wow me, right off the bat, kind of with season 2. Season 3 so far has not had any episodes in these first 3 that have really come kind of close to wowing me, and maybe that's an unfair expectation. Like, these have been kind of light and fun, but I can't help wondering if there isn't more the show could be at this point.
I have to echo your sentiments here. Season 3, we have not yet grown the beard on this season yet. So, we're still here. We're episode 3. We have a couple more to go before we get, Season 3, this means with 10 episodes, we're a third of the way through. So hopefully it grows the beard within the next 2 or 3. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think that they are still taking an approach of, we're going to have kind of an adventure of the week, and then we're going to have these like little threads that are going to carry through from episode to episode throughout the season. And I think that's fine. That's largely been a successful impulse. But as we'll get into this week, I think, this is a week where we're treading some of the same territory we've tread, and it feels like they are in this position of feeling like, well, the fans really seem to like this episode of the week format, so we're going to really lean into that. And as a result, we're getting a couple of standalone episodes, which I don't know, I can't help but feel, especially with the announcement of Season 5 being the last and with it only being 6 episodes, this sense of like, guys, like, we don't have 26 episode seasons of Star Trek to play around with anymore. Like, I realize maybe these creatives feel like they're stuck between a rock and the hard place with fans, because on the one hand, we want the thing that they're giving us in theory. Like, we talk about how, it's too bad that, like, in this new streaming era, we don't really get filler episodes, but like, you can't give us all filler, no killer as a counterpoint. So like, you gotta really, I think, raise the bar season after season, and I think it feels a little bit like they're coasting in some of these episodes so far. It sounds like I'm more negative on these than I am positive. Overall, I'm still enjoying the season, but I'm getting this kind of creeping sense of, okay, I'm waiting for this season to take off, and it hasn't done that for me yet.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. You said, I love that phrase. It's aggressively fine. That's a great way of putting it. I feel like there's just been a lack of focus on these episodes. Like they don't seem to know exactly where they want to take the story. They're just kind of buttoning up things that happened last season before they move on. But it's been so long. I think we've had a year, almost 2 years between.
It was 2 years.
Thank you. Yeah, 2 years. Like at that point, so much time has passed in the audience world that you want to pick up on something new and move on. I was kind of surprised at the opening of this episode where it was a Captain Batel and Captain Pike kind of sort of partnership that they were going to go into, and she was going to go on her own ship, based on the conversation from last week's episode, where, they were talking about the future, or she was going to move in. I kind of expected the story to wrap up here, but instead we have a new crux, a new plot arc that this episode centers around in order to kick us off. And I didn't know how I felt about that. It was just so fine.
I mean, that is the thing about the episode that I maybe struggled with the most right off the bat, was the sense of, we just played this beat 2 episodes ago. Like the premiere of this season, we were wrapping up the whole Captain Batel in peril. Pike is, at wit's end because he's so worried about her, all this stuff. And then we're doing it again 2 episodes later in a 10-episode season. Why are we retreading these waters? And I don't know what happened in the plotting out of this season at the beginning with the writers. Like, I don't know if this was something that there was a reason why they were restacking this particular problem again in this episode. Like, I really truly felt like after episode 1 we were going to kind of leave the Gorn in the past, and now Batel's going to turn into a half human, half Gorn. Like, I mean, I don't know. Maybe they can tell interesting stories with that, but in terms of the emotional story that Pike and Batel were dealing with this week, it felt very much like we were just rewarming those leftovers. And I felt like, come on, can't we, like, I'm okay with a one-off, like, hey, we got to get some weird plant from this planet. Like, that feels like a TOS plot. That's fine.
Sure, yeah.
That could be right out of TOS or TNG. I don't have a problem with that basic setup. But to have the reason for it be, again, this particular problem, I'm like, come on, like, strange, new, stop it. Like, like, make it strange and new. Don't give us the exact same problem for the exact same characters.
Well, we'll get into it in a hot minute here, but we do get strange and we do get new.
I mean, that's fair. We do get something that we haven't seen in Star Trek before, and we'll get into that. But
we will.
But in terms of this particular problem, I'm past it. Like, I need for there to be something else for these characters to be going through. We've got not many episodes, and we've got all these other crew members. Like, let's have an episode where Uhuru gets a problem to work through, or
Batel isn't even
something to work. Like, right, exactly.
She's not even a member of the core crew here, and we're spending so much time with her.
And I get that Pike, of course, is. And,
of course.
He's on an adventure with M'Benga, and I'm glad that we're still spending some time with him. But even that was revisiting M'Benga's previous storyline and feeling like warmed over leftovers. Like, oh my goodness. Like, let's push things forward just a bit more.
Yeah. Okay, so we're in the episode. We're talking about it. I guess normally we would do like our overall impressions, the episode before we get in a deep dive. But this was our overall impression. we are feeling very fine with everything that's going on. So let's
it's a 6 out of 10. It's a 6.5 out of 10. Like
100%.
We could. Like, if it came on the TV, if we go by that old standard, like, if this was an episode that was just coming on TV, like, would I turn it off? Like, no. But it's aggressive. So far, it's just been fine.
Yeah, it's just been fine. I mean, interesting setup here. We have to get to this planet in a demilitarized zone. It's called Kenfori. I thought it was pretty interesting that, we're revisiting the Klingon War in the past a little bit here and, looking at the maybe not necessarily consequences, but things that have happened throughout the Federation and the Klingon Empire. And now there's a demilitarized zone. They got this planet here. There's a research station. And I thought this was a pretty cool setup. We're going to go see something that we haven't seen before. So there's your crux for the episode. It's a Black Ops style mission. No one can know about it. It's totally off the books. Of course. Right? And of course there's a warning beacon that says go back or die. Of course there is. So a lot of this just felt like, paint by numbers in terms of the plot. And I will say this. I definitely thought this was going to turn into a Predator style episode and not an episode that went in a different horror direction. With like the hunted becomes, the hunters become the hunted, the Klingons beam down, disruptors are ready. And then the next thing you know, boom, there's the Predator, right? So I guess points for subverting that expectation, but we're going to come out and say it. I got to take points away, for me personally, points away, because zombies, really?
I mean, I guess you can say at least they called it out in the show, but
yeah,
even then, look, I'm a little bit more forgiving because this is a show that has already shown a willingness to dip its toes into other genres and be a little flexible, be a little fun, be a little strange compared to some of the other Star Trek shows. I mean, TOS, they went to a planet with witches. I mean, it's not like this is entirely outside of the realm of what's happened before in Star Trek. But
sure,
then
but they
that
also
said, yeah. But to your point, like this is not stuff like. Even though they haven't done this specific thing in Star Trek before, they weren't doing anything like new with it. Like they weren't innovating in the genre that they're playing with. They were just sort of,
yep.
Painting with that particular color this week. And fine, I guess, but it didn't even tie in with anything the characters were dealing with thematically. Like, one of the things that the best of zombie fiction does is it explores the human condition in some way. It reflects society in some way. It's presenting a challenge for our characters to overcome specific to the threat. It's not just background noise or background action, which is what this felt like. It felt like these might as well have been some random alien from the planet, which, like, yes, we've also seen that plenty of times before, but like, if you're going to do this, if you're going to take this kind of swing, do more with it. It shouldn't just be a background color that you're using. It should actually force our characters to confront something unique and different that they maybe haven't had to before, and not just be a sort of like a funny thing for them to comment on, like, oh my God, it's zombies. Like, isn't that kind of fun? I agree. It's a little passé in many ways. And I think too, like, when we're presented with the initial problem of, we got to go to this planet, we got to go, Black Ops style, off the books. Like, I'm so tired of this ship and this crew always going on off the record missions. Like, like they're always doing, like, twice in this season. We're 3 episodes in. And in the first episode and this episode, we're doing some off-the-record, Starfleet can never know about what we actually did stuff. Like, what I would love to see this crew actually go on? A mission. A mission. We haven't had that yet this season, and we're a third of the way through.
Yeah, we're not even asking for a 5-year mission. We're just asking for a mission.
Right. If they're not on a mission next week, automatic, like, 2-star deduction. Just off the bat, unless it blows me away in some other way. Like I'm like all due respect to the show, like I'm glad that they're having fun with it and doing these different things, but also ship, mission, Starfleet, like these are things the fans care about too.
Absolutely, absolutely. And to your point about, the zombie films having a moment of introspection to examine the human condition, there's very little of that in this episode. The interplay that we get with M'Benga and Pike as they walk around the forest, I thought that was great. Where we are recharacterizing, we are basically being reintroduced to this friendship that they have. It's been 2 years since the show's been on air, and now we're getting M'Benga and Pike, on a mission together. I really enjoyed that, and I like the idea of them having this friendship and this history that they can relate to with each other. And just the funny little moment, you have 3 ex-wives, and you're thinking about a 4th. Physician, heal thyself. I enjoy that, and unfortunately, those moments of like clarity and just the charisma that they both have as actors gets undercut by the pace that it just has to go, go, go. We can't stop and like actually talk about this. We have to move at the speed of plot. And we've parroted this 100 million times, where in the era of streaming, everything's got to be done right away, and why can't we just take a moment? And oh well, it has to be all killer, no filler. And now we're getting a lot of filler as a result of all of this. So it just feels like when they are putting these episodes together, they can't exactly make up their mind what sort of pacing they want to go with. But we're here for characters, and we're here for character drama, and we get a little bit of that in this episode. I think towards the end, just before they escape the rooftop, they have a couple moments to kind of grapple with everything that's going on before they get back to the ship. And I don't know, it just feels like there's so much more that could have been done with this that they left on. Maybe they filmed it and it got left on the cutting room floor, or maybe they just thought it was a good enough conversation to wrap it up. On the Enterprise, so let's pivot real quick and talk about what's going on the Enterprise. Una is in command, and you've got Lieutenant Ortegas back at the helm. She's been through some stuff. She's going through some stuff.
Right.
And it seems like there's a lot of tension between what Ortegas is doing and the rest of the crew that's definitely getting clocked by the crew. And when it comes to talking about PTSD, when it comes to talking about trauma, these are all deeply personal affectations that we go through. But we can certainly recognize that, trauma has impacted on individuals when they're acting out of character. And in this case, it seems like Una is really approaching this whole situation with an incredible amount of empathy and really giving a long lead to Ortegas to kind of work through this. And I liked how this was handled on this episode and how it was handled on the ship, how Una addressed these issues. And I'm curious as to your thoughts. It's very clear that It's very clear that Ortegas was really jumpy coming into it, and things happen, and unfortunately she has some consequences.
Yeah, I thought this was a strong component of this week's episode, this sort of B plot. I think this is one of those cases of a Star Trek episode where I was more compelled by the B plot that we were getting less of than the A plot. That happens sometimes in Star Trek shows, but you mind it a little bit less when you've got 25 other episodes in a season to watch. And I think the final scene in particular, if we even want to get into that now, between Una and Ortegas was, I thought, maybe my favorite of the episode, because it felt the most. And look, there might be some people who watch this and are like, oh my God, she got off so light for what she did. Maybe, but I also felt like it was it's one of those scenes that I felt like if the episode had ended without it, I would have had a big problem. Like I needed, like there did need to be, and they clearly set up that like Una clocks what she's a little suspicious. She clocks, Ortegas as everything's unfolding on the bridge, and I thought it was a good scene for both of the actors and for both of the characters. And it is a storyline that I'm interested in tracking as we go along because I do think that seeing how she is responding to the trauma of her experiences is going to be one of the things that makes this character compelling to watch this season. I mean, we always like watching Ortegas. I think she's been a great character from the
Yeah.
beginning. We've always wanted more of her, so I think that this is going to be an exciting opportunity. I hope, at least, that it's an exciting opportunity for the actor to work with this particular shade this season, and I hope that they don't like drop it entirely after this episode. I do think that it's something that, I'd like to see her come out on the other side of this conflict, like for the better, but go through this very real, very, I think, relatable issue this season. I think is going to be something that fans can really sink their teeth into.
Yeah, yeah, it's really really good stuff what they're doing with it and the portrayal of it. We also get some, maybe not really, very minimal Spock in this episode after a very Spock heavy episode two.
Yeah, he has a couple of notable scenes. He does the kind of mind meld scene with Batel where he's kind of like, give me your pain. Kind of made me think of that.
Okay.
But it did, you know, it felt like I I needed another beat from Spock in this episode. Like it felt like he might as well have been like a human, not human, but like a living uh, piece of medical equipment. Like he just sort of like was employed as a medical device in this
Mm.
scene, and like he punched that ensign. And I'm glad he
Oh
apologized on
man.
his way out, but like he sent him flying across the room, and then that was it for Spock. Like I think we were just done. Like I don't
Well,
think
he gets his big briefing room, here's the plan that we're going to
Yeah,
do.
yes,
Yeah.
right. But in terms of I guess like processing, and maybe I guess the point is that this is no big deal for him, but
Yeah.
it felt like something that in the episode they build up to, but like in the scene, it's a big scene. He's going through a lot. He's
Yeah.
taking on like all of his
Yeah.
pain. He's like seeing the flash of the Gorn and the mind meld, all this stuff. It felt like they were setting up for something else for him specifically to go through or address or deal with in this episode. And you're right. He has the briefing scene where he lays out the plan, but he seems otherwise unaffected by this scene, which I thought was interesting. I don't know if they're going to revisit it at any point. Maybe it was just kind of one off, but it felt like a pretty substantial scene for them to not address the fallout of it ever
Yeah.
again.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. It's it feels strange to have a big episode with lots of action going on and Spock not really be involved in it too much, with how heavily reliant he is in season two and episodes one and two here. But like I said, I'm glad he kind of takes a step back to let some other characters shine, and as a result, we get a real brief moment which I enjoyed where Chapel really winds up and like cracks him in the face, to knock him out of that mind meld, whatever that situation was that he was experiencing. And I can't imagine how enjoyable that must have been for the actors.
Yeah, and the thing that definitely I think continues to come through, maybe fans will disagree, but I still feel it is I do still get a good sense of these these people being a crew. Like they like
Hmm.
each other in front and behind the scenes. You just kind of feel a sense of genuine camaraderie and joy in making this show. Like I think it probably doesn't hurt that the show leans into its silliness quite a bit. Like I'm sure that creates a fun atmosphere on the set. I'm
Yeah.
sure they had their fun on the set of the Discovery, but I know we've talked about many times as that show was going on and as this show was beginning, how different it is to have a show where you're not dealing with personal and universe ending cataclysms simultaneously each week, where there's like so much trauma to process, and so much,
Yeah.
so many stakes, and they're so high and all this stuff. And it does feel like this crew gets to cut loose a bit, but both the actual actors and the characters themselves. And so I do appreciate that overall feeling watching the show. I like, it makes it an easier thing to tune into,
Hmm.
just episode by episode. We've talked in the past about the, is Discovery going to be a show that becomes very rewatchable because so much of it is heavily serialized? And I do think that is one of the things this show does continue to benefit from in comparison, is that it's a show that even if it's just an like okay episode, you can just kind of throw it on and
Hmm.
and enjoy it, and it's a self-contained story for the most part, for 95% of it, and you're in and out in 50 minutes and it's fine. But I think both of us feel like this is a show which should and can aspire to more.
Definitely. Definitely agree. Um, all right, so let's get into a little bit of the deeper context here, starting from landing on the planet and going into the research station. A couple things I noticed on their quest for the Chimera weed, this special plant that will help Captain Batel absorb the Gorn DNA. And throughout the crux of this sort of A plot here, Pike discovers that this plan to get this plant isn't to give Captain Batel a chance to survive. It's to create a hybridization of a human Gorn being. So Batel will essentially evolve into a hybrid form. What was your take on this?
I mean, again, outside of my general sort of skepticism about why we're continuing to replay this particular story and emotional beat, it did seem like a kind of interesting thing. I don't know. I was sort of ambivalent about that specific solution, especially since we don't even see it happen this week. Again, it's another thing that we're going to have to deal with in another week, and then that'll be another week of, I guess we're still dealing with more Gorn stuff. I mean, I am ready for them to start exploring new worlds again, and on the record, not off the record. And I realize that I should probably limit my criticisms for the show to what's actually in the episode and not hold all of this against the show. But it is hard to watch the show, especially someone reviewing it, and not just be a little bit mindful of like, okay, this is where we're going this season? Okay, maybe they'll surprise me. Maybe they'll surprise me, and they'll do something really compelling with this particular story turn. But also, I'm kind of ready to move on from the Batel drama. I'm happy for the two of them to just be happy, and if that's fine, if they need to torture Pike some more and make this whole relationship with theirs more tortured and drawn out, like I guess, at least I hope they make interesting decisions along the way. We'll see if this ends up being one of them.
Okay, so in the vein of interesting decisions, I'm gonna put a big, big, big tinfoil hat on my head right now, and I'm gonna ask you this question. I want you to just stay with me. Just stay with me. All right? Okay, so human Gorn hybridization. Some critique that we have seen online have been that, oh, the Gorn are too reptilian. They're too monstery. They're this, they're that, the other thing. And in Arena TOS, when we first meet the Gorn is a bipedal individual. So my tinfoil hat here is Is Batel and this Gorn hybridization thing going to result in a similar, shall we say, we don't talk about this situation like with the Klingon augment virus?
Hadn't thought about that.
I
They
just I
have
just watched your
started.
eyes roll all the way back.
No, 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 no. Not at what you said, just in thought, because I hadn't thought about that at all. They do talk about, and I realize this is mostly in terms of like characters that are going to start appearing. They have started talking about linking this to the TOS era, bridging that gap, and maybe part of it would be making the Gorn a little bit more like they were in TOS. But the Klingons that appear in this era, appear like Klingons ought to. Their ridges are maybe a little less pronounced. I noticed that they seem maybe a little bit more subtle, but in general they look like you would expect. They look recognizably Klingon, and so I think there's probably just a recognition that this is a new era. We're visualizing and representing these races that appeared in TOS looking this way in a different way, and it just is what it is. Like we're not in the era where we're putting on bronzer and calling you a Klingon. We're not in an era where you're putting on a rubber bipedal lizard suit and being called a Gorn. We have other ways of telling our stories visually now, so we're going to take advantage of those, and we're just going to ask you, the audience, to not mind. And as more and more, and look, I hope Star Trek perpetuates forever, obviously, but as more and more people come to the franchise and these shows become the first exposure that they have to Star Trek, I think they're being conscientious about the fact that we need to focus on, like, I realize this sounds ironic to say, given that we're talking about a series set in this era, but like we want to be treading new ground, at least visually, at
Sure.
least in some respects. If they are so beholden to essentially rebooting TOS as they seem like they are moving towards doing, as Craig has been predicting for a while, credit to our co-host Craig. I do think that they are just kind of resetting the table a little bit
Yeah.
visually in terms of what people associate with certain creatures when they watch Star Trek.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. On that note, let's pivot real quick and talk about the Klingons themselves. This episode, we get another taste of the Strange New World version of Klingons, this time in full battle dress, looking mean, looking clean. The human stench lingers in the air. I really, really enjoyed seeing this style of Klingon again. How about you?
Yeah, I was happy to see these guys show up. It looked like, hey, that looks kind of like a recognizable Klingon battle cruiser, and these look like recognizable Klingons in armor, and it felt like of a piece with what we've seen before. Of we're gonna present these aliens that you recognize from this era in a way that is more in line with the way they've been presented more recently. And I too, I liked it. I think, as we alluded to, I have some doubts, some skepticism
Sure,
about
sure.
the fact that we're even in the M'Benga storyline with these Klingons, where we're just rehashing stuff that's happened in the past, and it seems like it's only doing so for, I mean, for me, I was watching it and almost feeling like they were trying to make us remember that better episode that we liked from last season. Like I shouldn't say we all. I really liked that M'Benga episode from last season. I thought it was a really powerful, nuance and shade to this character. And it felt again like they were just sort of like, hey, you all liked that. Like here's that, here's that
Mm-hmm.
again. we're
Mm-hmm.
gonna we're gonna present him in this way. We're gonna show what a badass he is, and the conflict for him is gonna be, oh, I don't know if revealing that this happened to my captain is gonna be okay. And then in the end, he's just kind of okay. He's sort of like, yeah, man, I get it. Sometimes you got to commit murder. Like it's like forget about it, Jake. It's Starfleet. You know, I did get a little bit of a sense of, again, like we're retreading some of the same material.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe my rating for this episode is going down as I talk.
Uh-oh.
I don't know. I feel like I'm doing much more complaining than I am talking about things that I liked.
Well,
But
let me
yeah.
let
Go
me
ahead.
interrupt. Let me interrupt. So, I love seeing the Klingons back on screen, and I'm a little bit more positive about how they brought back M'Benga's storyline from last season. This seemed like I wouldn't necessarily say like a natural break between, the story as it picks up where M'Benga killed this ambassador and now the ambassador's daughter has shown up to take revenge. Although it's kind of like not revenge because they're also happy that they killed the ambassador, but also now it's an honor thing. Now we have to have an honor fight. It was all very, I don't know, Klingon, Shakespearean complexity and drama.
It did feel very convolutedly Klingon. I did actually like that aspect of it, even though it was kind of silly.
Sure.
It played almost a little bit like dark humor, and
Mm-hmm.
maybe that was by intent. And I did like that twist on we aren't actually seeking out vengeance for his death. We're seeking out vengeance because we wanted to kill him first. And that felt like a very Klingon thing to want revenge for. And so I did appreciate that note. It was just I don't know.
I'm gonna tell you exactly what it was. These Klingons didn't mean anything in the story. They were just there to pose a little bit of a problem on the planet's surface and
just
pose
like
a little bit of a problem, just like the zombies. And again, this could have been much more interesting had it been done slightly different, but that's neither here nor there because we got what we got, and we can't get upset about that. Anyway,
like M'Benga had a personal connection with the Klingon that he killed. The Klingon that he killed was claiming like credit for the thing that he had done, that for him, like it was a really emotionally, morally complex relationship that he had with this character who was only in this one episode.
Mm-hmm.
And you like this character that showed up meant nothing to him. It meant nothing to his past. It meant nothing to his present. He seemed almost resentful and disdainful that he had to fight this person. And I get it, but I got to be honest, it's also hard for the audience to care about the fight if the character doesn't care about the fight.
Yeah. And the ultimate sacrifice that Klingon, what's her name, does.
Right.
I mean, I hate saying that, but we get screeners and it's hard to rewind and go back. Anyway, and without the captions on the screeners, I have a hard time writing down the names. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. So, she makes this ultimate sacrifice and saves M'Benga and Pike as a result, which, like you said, like what does it matter? What does it matter? Like, they came in, they got what they wanted, and they left. The same exact story could have happened without any of this. We could have met with the zombies. We could have, had this little escape maneuver with the Enterprise coming in and beaming out at the last second. It all could have been done exactly the same way. Why did we need the Klingons in place? They just added another element of pressure. And I understand that from like a plot standpoint, but, just in terms of like moving the story forward. But like you just said, if M'Benga didn't even care, why should the audience care? And it seemed like at the end of the episode, when they're back on the Enterprise, Pike and M'Benga, they get maybe 30 seconds, and now M'Benga is back having a fit of consciousness regarding his own actions during the Klingon War, and now he has to relive some of those actions, and Pike kind of, gives him a pass. Just gives him a pass. Like, yes, you just admitted to assassinating an ambassador, and now I have to live with this knowledge, but you're my friend, so I'm just going to let it go.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. With the price of just about everything going up, we thought we'd bring our prices down. So to help us, we brought in a reverse auctioneer, which is apparently a thing.
Mint Mobile Unlimited Premium Wireless. How to get 30, 30, bit to get 30, bit to get 20, 20, 20, bit to get 20, 20, bit to get 15, 15, 15, 15, just $15 a month? Sold!
Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. New customer offer for first 3 months only. Speed slow after 35 gigabytes if network's busy. Taxes and fees extra. See mintmobile.com.
Right. And more like, well, we were on an unofficial mission, so I don't have a captain's log conveniently. So
Convenience.
Therefore, right. But it's another thing of like, are we just operating in a Star Trek world where like there's just no consequences? I mean, which again is one of the reasons why I did like that final scene where it feels like, okay, well, here's a scene where at least on an individual level, we know that some of the officers, if they go their own way, do their own thing, they will be held accountable. But it was a little odd to have the juxtaposition of those two scenes where you have one character who, admittedly, we love M'Benga. We have a lot of sympathy for him.
Definitely.
But his captain finds out that the guy murdered an ambassador, while he was on the ship last season, and is just sort of like, well, sometimes you got to kill a motherfucker. And admittedly, like obviously Ortega's was in the wrong here. I'm not defending her actions, but it is odd to have the justification of like, okay, so you can absolutely murder someone if you have a good enough reason for it, but like, you can't do your own thing in this circumstance. And I want to be very clear. I am not defending Ortega's. I think she was right to be disciplined. I think it was a good scene, but it does feel like, well, what are you telling us? What are you telling us about what value Starfleet personnel at the command level put on people just kind of doing whatever they feel is right?
Exactly. The other thing that bothers me about this particular scene, last season, we had debated that episode. We had debated the moral implications of M'Benga. Did he do it? Did he not do it? And while the episode was fairly clear that, yes, M'Benga did, ultimately in self-defense, we all agreed that he killed Ambassador Ra, the ambiguity of how that episode ended, I think, was a beautiful thing to do in an episode of television. And to come back this season and for M'Benga to say, oh, no, I killed him. I assassinated him. It's like, no, man, you guys were in a fight. It was self-defense. He was probably going to kill you. Right. So why are you saying that you assassinated him? Why are you admitting that you killed him? You already said it was self-defense, and now we're going back on that. And sure, there is some interest in that ambiguity, but I think this just kind of undercut what they did last season in not a great way.
A little bit it does, and I wish they hadn't, because that again was one of those episodes which felt like a highlight of season 2 for me, and I'd really rather just have kept that in amber as it was and not revisited that storyline. It felt like, boy, that was a really cool thing to learn about M'Benga. That was a really well told story, and leave it alone. And now, not even 3 episodes into the very next season, where we're getting warmed over leftovers from it, and it doesn't taste as good. And it makes us wonder whether we liked the dish that much in the first place.
Ah, yes. Well, luckily it's Klingon, so it all gets served cold.
Fair enough.
We talked about M'Benga breaking some rules and getting away with it. Let's talk about Ortega's breaking some rules and not getting away with it. Right. I think, much like you, I think this was a great. It's a great story for Ortega's to have. It leans very well into real world circumstances of dealing with trauma and having to go back to work and having to do all these things, and maybe being a little jumpy and maybe being a little bit more quick to want to get things done. Get in, get out. Come on, let's go. And I see where Ortega's is coming from. I really do. In this episode, though, it's very clear that there are some regulations that need to be followed. and there's a chain of command that needs to be followed. And what transpires, essentially, for viewers at home who may have missed it, Una gives the command to fly the ship at 1/8 impulse, and up, Ortegas lets her hand slip, and she's doing 1/6 impulse, which is slightly faster, and basically allows the Klingons to see the Enterprise on sensors. And then they get caught, shields up, red alert, here we go. And that causes a situation to occur where they have to go with Ortegas' plan to basically warp into lower atmosphere, just above or below the thermosphere. I forget, whatever it is. Basically heat up the hull and then beam out Pike and M'Benga and then escape. It all, of course, works and everybody gets home safe, but that's not really the point. Ian, I really liked that one of the final scenes of this episode was Ortegas getting dressed down in the briefing room. What was your take on it?
Yeah, as we alluded to earlier, I think it was a good decision to have this particular storyline being played out with Ortegas. We've seen that she's been a little bit on edge. She's gone through a lot in the show so far. We've seen her beat up. We've seen her demanding extreme things of herself, demanding and expecting like such a high level of performance at all times. Like, it's a lot of pressure that is not just put on her by others, but that she puts herself under. And coupling that very relatable experience with the also very relatable experience for many of going through the trauma of war and of all of the personal experiences that she's had in the intervening years. And we know from real world examples that there are people who sometimes have a very difficult time shutting off that part of their brain that's activated during wartime when you're in combat, or when you are facing a particular opponent who maybe they're from a particular country, and then maybe you carry with you certain suspicions about people from that country going forward into civilian life, and that might affect the way that you act in certain circumstances and the sorts of judgments and assumptions that you're making. And all of that is stuff that Star Trek absolutely should be exploring. So I'm glad to see that we're getting some of that here. And I think that as we get more of that, because I sort of expect her to be off duty next episode. She was relieved of duty for 2 weeks, was given remedial chain of command training, and I would imagine is going to be going through some personal therapy as well. So I really do hope that this is ground we continue to explore, because I do think that this week it was the stuff that I found working best for me.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. It's very interesting stuff. Just real quick, the phrase is unconscious bias. When you go through certain traumas and subconsciously, unconsciously, you carry them forward. We refer to it as unconscious bias, and we all have it. We all have certain things that we are, it's just like our hackles go up a little bit, for no reason whatsoever. But a fight or flight response starts to take over, and of course, how you manage that is really the crux of the issue. But yeah, I echo your sentiments here, and I definitely think that Ortegas will be off duty in the next episode. In grand Star Trek fashion, though, I'm sure either by episode 5 or by the end of episode 4, she'll be back on duty. That's my prediction. Ortegas is interesting as a character. We didn't really get enough in seasons 1 and 2. And it seems like, hopefully if they continue this thread, we will get the Erica Ortegas storyline that we're looking for.
Yeah, I think so too. I'm glad that we're getting more with her. I think, again, it's just one of those things that, as we keep saying ad nauseum, is an unfortunate byproduct of how short these seasons have become, which is that even if we just had like 8, more episodes, which I realize sounds like a lot because it's almost double the amount that we're getting. But even if we just had 8, it would feel like we had just a little bit more breathing room to give these characters some extra beats to play out with one another, to pair off some of these crew members in new and interesting ways, because there's only so many configurations you can pull off in a single season, and some characters get more screen time than others, just point blank, because of how prominent they are in the cast. So it becomes an impossible task to feel like you are able to adequately service the needs of every character every week.
The needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few, though, Ian.
Yeah, and many of us need a little bit more from the show than what we're getting.
Oh yes, oh yes. So overall, I think we are both in agreement. This is a solid 6 out of 10. Has your opinion changed since we've been discussing it?
Yeah, I think, to be completely fair to the episode, a lot of my frustrations have more to do with the overall structure and philosophy of the show as
Sure.
it's going through season 3 so far. And so I think I need to be a little bit more fair to what they're actually doing within the episode. And yeah, I think solid 6.5. Like, it's fine. It's
Yeah.
fine. You're not.
Yeah.
It's not an episode that you're going to turn on and be like, "Ugh, what's going on?" Uh, Unless you really hate zombie stuff, in which case you'll be like, "Jesus Christ, these guys are scraping the bottom of the barrel." I don't know if you're totally tapped out on anything zombie related, but even then, it's not really about the zombies. They're just kind of there. They're just kind of
They
there
are.
to be
They
the
are.
threat of the week, and they make a couple of, you know,
Well,
nods to, like, hey, they're zombies, and Pike chides M'Benga for calling them that.
zombies?
It's yeah.
Zombies? The look on his face, like, yeah, I felt the same exact way. Zombies? You're giving this to us? The excuse, the explanation is that they were working on this the chimera weed that they go for. Supposedly, they could make a hybrid super crop, which could feed colonists forever, essentially, because the moss basically reanimates anything. I don't know, a moss that makes zombies. I had a hard time wrapping my head around that, but I feel like it's Star Trek. They kind of get a pass on doing a lot of this weird stuff, and it's kind of forgotten about in the grand zeitgeist of the episodes. I really could have used, not zombies in this. Is there anything in this episode that you particularly liked? Maybe there were some Easter eggs, like Spock's Tholian web outfit.
Nothing that really stood out to me. I noticed that, as I'm sure you did, like, oh, of course, Scotty's now attending the briefings instead of
Mm-hmm.
Pelia. It's been a couple weeks since we've seen her. They're
Mm-hmm.
clearly phasing her out and phasing
Mm-hmm.
Scotty in, which, again, we knew was going to happen. It seems like it's just going to be a kind of gradual, week by week, where just Scotty's here and Pelia's not.
Yeah, interesting. Interesting. I definitely clocked that as well. I think that happened sooner than I would have anticipated, which is a shame because I think Pelly is a real pleasant addition to the crew.
Yes, I've been a fan of hers since she first came on board. I know that was a little bit controversial, but I certainly didn't mind the casting. I think she's a legend, and I think that it is so far, like, thumbs up for the actor that they have for Scotty. Very happy with the direction that they've gone. I think it's good casting. I think the actor's doing a good job. Not unhappy to see it. I'm just clocking that, okay, we seem to be firmly transitioning now.
Definitely, definitely.
Yeah.
I also noticed that some of the props, like in the medical props specifically, the like the sample container and the little buzzers and
Right.
mini tricorders, those are all very TOS style. So I do like the continuity that they are holding on to, and it does seem, shout out to you guys for seeing it coming a long way off, that they're trying to make it link up with TOS even more and more. Definitely agree that that's kind of where we're going. Are there any final thoughts, Ian?
No, I think we've got it covered. There's not a ton of depth to this one to really get into, but I mean, we managed to talk for almost an hour anyway, so I guess that's
True.
to. I was about to say the show's credit, but really it's our credit. I think we deserve the congratulations for that. You're welcome, everybody.
You know what? Thank you, Ian.
You're welcome.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's it for me. How about you?
Yeah, no, that's all I got. I hope that things pick up, and this is just them putting, I don't know, trying to close the book on things that happened last season. And
I thought that they had done that in episode 1, and
Yeah.
now they're reopening the book
now they're
intentionally.
reopening the
So
book. Yeah.
know.
So I don't know where they're going with it, but I really hope, like you, that we next episode we move past it. We're on an actual Starfleet accredited mission. Maybe Admiral April is in the wings waiting to issue a new thing. I don't know, but I hope we go somewhere fun. And primarily because discussing these episodes is also fun, and it's fun when the episodes are fun. So not to say it wasn't fun talking with it now, but it always feels like if you're just criticizing something and you're taking away from it. And I just want to say, I still enjoyed watching it, and Star Trek is still, it's always like a bar above for me anyway. But that's it. That's all I have to say.
All right. Well, it's been a pleasure. Looking forward to doing it again soon.
Thanks, Ian. This has been Ian Buckley and Mike Slammer over at We Are Starfleet. You can follow us at Starfleet Pod on Threads, Blue Sky, Instagram. I think we're mostly on Blue Sky these days, so keep your eyes peeled for updates there. Again, at Starfleet Pod. We are a part of the Film Stories Network, which includes Make It So, a Star Trek Legacy podcast. So check us out over at filmstoriesnetwork.co.uk. Thanks, everybody.